yung nagsasabing may backlash, nasa isip lang nila yon. Gusto nilang papaniwalaan yung sarili nila na may backlash.
Presidential bet Ping Lacson denies receiving backlash after the press conference on Sunday. Lacson also said that he has nothing to apologize for. And the senator earlier insisted that there is no joint call for Robredo to withdraw from the presidential race, and that it was only Isko Moreno's personal sentiment.
I have nothing to apologize for because I did not join the call for VP Lenny to withdraw. Sinabi ko lang yung facts, what transpired, bakit nag-fail yung unification talks as early as before filing.
Wala talaga, totally unexpected as far as we are concerned. Ewan ko lang si Isko kung pinlano niya yun, pero hindi, wala sa kanya wala sa pinag-usapan.
Presidential contenders Marcos and Robredo maintain their lead, with Robredo still second, but adding further to her numbers in the latest survey by Okta Research Group. Will the numbers change in the run-up to Election Day? We discussed in this episode of The Chiefs. We'll be joined by our guests and the other chiefs when we return. Welcome to the Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay and with us online from Manila, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and here in Mandaluyong with us in the studio, Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy Tuesday.
Sigurado. Malapit na ang Biyernes.
Ami, tuloy-tuloy ang fallout dun sa press ko nung Sunday
Oo nga eh. May mga may apology, merong mga But si Isko is doubling down Inulit naman niya kanina yung kanyang be a hero, withdraw.
But
Pero
even Isko's vice presidential candidate, is not in agreement.
hindi lang yun. The way he said it is basically leave us out of it.
And the way he also said it was parang, I have so much in common with Robredo. Now we more or less agreed on the same points in the debate.
So anyway, pag-uusapan natin obviously politika. Diretso na lang tayo sa ating mga guests because they all had something that we have a lot to talk about na linabas nung weekend. Now joining us are our friends from Octa Research. We have Professor Ranjit Rai and Guido David of Octa Research Group. And if by this time you haven't noticed, I'll spell it out. Guido David is the mathematician. Father Nick Austriaco is the molecular biologist.
Ranjit Rai, the beer manufacturer.
Ranjit Rai is the political scientist, which probably means we're not going to be talking about COVID tonight. Yeah. Instead, we'll be talking about the political survey na linabas
April
ng
2 to 6 survey of Octa Research.
Octa Research. Gentlemen, welcome once again to the Chiefs.
Good evening to everyone.
Okay. So Ranjit, with a build-up like that, diretso ko na sa iyo. I talk about a bit about the salient findings of your Tugon ng Masa survey.
Okay, so I think the more important part is that this was conducted last April 2 to 6. Octa conducted a nationwide survey entitled Tugon ng Masa. The probe was focused on the 2020 elections, and we have the screenshot here, no? Again, we have a front runner in Ferdinand Marcos. He has 57% of the vote. And the nearest competitor is, of course, VP Leni Robredo with 22% of the vote. And it's the same with our vice president. No, we have Mayor Sara Duterte with 57% of the vote, and this Senate President Tito Soto with 23% of the vote. So it's almost the same proportion. If you can see the slide for the president, a preference for the president, you'll see that former Senator Marcos is, leading in all areas and socioeconomic classes, so across the board. And if you're going to ask the question about age groups, also across age groups. So the only place where there is some competitive competition happening now is in the National Capital Region, where VP Leni is only 10 points behind the front runner, Ferdinand Marcos. So in sum, we have a front runner for the president and vice president positions. They come from the same time. They are a tandem. That's Senator Marcos and Mayor Sara Duterte.
Now, how much do you read into the details, like, for example, a 7-point rise in Vice President Leni Robredo and arguably a statistically insignificant rise on the side of Bongbong Marcos? Do we read anything into that?
Well, one thing, one can argue that, VP Leni's numbers have improved since February, but the improvement, while significant, seemingly at this point it has not bridged the gap between her and the leading candidate, former Senator Bongbong Marcos. And the gap is, has increased since our last survey, our last publicly accessible survey in Feb, and it's now 35%. The gap, and given that it's a few weeks before elections, we can argue that it is still mathematically possible, it's an uphill climb, very, very cumbersome now for those competing against the tandem of Marcos and Duterte to catch up. No, but there is, of course, there are pathways, and there's time. There's still time to campaign, and that these numbers will change. No? But the gap is quite significant, and so it will be an uphill climb for everybody trying to get to number one.
Prof, what I really find fascinating about your survey is hinimay-himay ninyo yung hard and soft voters, pati yung who will definitely not change his mind, who will most likely not change his mind, and so on down the line. Doon mo makikita kasi kung sino malamang o sinong maaring magbigay at sinong maaring kumain doon sa leads ng isa't isa. Can you give us a lowdown on that? What are your findings as to sino yung maaring i-mine ng sinong kandidato?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ed. And let's take a look at the front runners, former Senator BBM. Kasi syempre, if we look at the raw numbers, he has 57%.
Yeah.
Ang perspective dyan is, and the perspective of the others, yung mga other candidates, number 2 down, 2 to 5, is kahit pag samasamahin nila yung votes nila,
Bitin.
you can't bitin pa rin. Because if someone has more than 50%, it seems like there's no pathway. Pero, but how many of this 57% are solid voters who will be definitely voting for former Senator BBM? So yun yung hinimay namin, because we're just looking at different possibilities. And this paghimay namin, or at least a question, out of the 57, 43 are hard voters, meaning they are not likely to change their votes. But there's still about 14 who may possibly, hindi naman natin sinasabi they will change their votes, but 14 of that 57 may change their votes still.
It's percent, Gids, clarify, 14%.
Right. It's 14% out of the 57%. And if we take those numbers, suddenly yung 43%, even though it may still be enough to win, it's not as daunting, kumbaga, as the 57%. If we're just looking at the numbers, kumbaga, parang it's still difficult, but in a sense, parang it gives the other candidates a sense of baka possible pa.
Oh,
diba?
I mean, it's still significant because in the past, as Dindo Manhit and other analysts keep pointing out, historically 36% is more than enough to basically reassure you in a contest where there's hardly anybody who comes out with a majority.
Definitely, it's very significant. It might be sufficient to win, but at least from the perspective of the other candidates, 43 is more reachable than 57. Kasi 57 is parang
Tapos na.
is the majority.
So what might influence those soft votes? Professor Rai, you are the political scientist. Siguro pinag-uusapan nyo rin itong mga factors na to. Will the withdrawal of certain candidates, for example, influence the swing votes?
Yeah. Right now, I think the one of the key factors is really if certain campaigns, withdraw. No? I think that was one avenue being explored by all of the competitors of the leading team, Marcos, Duterte, no? And well, it seems that the last press conference over the weekend shut that possibility down, no? Another is really the social movements around these campaigns, campaigning harder and really engaging and working hard, no, to convert the votes coming, from the Marcos camp, as Professor David has already expressed. There are still soft votes out there, and while all of the votes of all of the candidates have already solidified to some extent, meaning majority of their voters have already decided who they want to vote for, there are still quite a number of soft votes out there that can still be gathered, no, by the leading or the candidates, like, let's say, for example, VP Leni and her campaign. And even if certain candidates do not withdraw, the fact that their campaigns have already slowed down might see a migration, no, over the next few weeks to other campaigns that are still, very strong. In this case, there are two campaigns that are still very strong. VP Lenny's campaign and, of course, Senator Bongbong Marcos's campaign. So even if, on paper, nobody has withdrawn, and they've said that the slowing down of their campaigns will also cause some sort of migration. Will this be enough? We're not certain, no, that if it will be enough. What has to happen now is she has to campaign to get more votes in strategic areas. And we talked about Calabarzon. She needs to get more votes in Central Luzon, and she needs to get at least 10 or 15 points more in NCR, apart from consolidating what she already has. So maybe that might be a pathway. If she's going to look at it that way, then she has to confront the votes of Senator Marcos.
Yung Easter Sunday press conference, wala din si Senator Pacquiao eh. So hindi masyadong solid yung pagsabi niya na I'm not withdrawing. If he withdraws, mag-i-impact kaya yon kay VP Lenny?
You see, we also measured that, no? And for those who want to get access to our own presentation, it's in our own website, no? The complete presentation that we gave to media. If certain candidates withdraw, it's not automatic all their votes go to one person, no? It spreads out, no? But definitely, if Senator Pacquiao withdraws, no, the two major beneficiaries would be Senator Marcos and, actually the top three would be Senator Marcos, Isko Moreno, and Lenny Robredo. So if like for example, just to look at the data, no, to give you a sense, if Senator Pacquiao withdraws, 34% of his vote goes to Senator Marcos, so Senator Marcos benefits. Mayor Isko gets 21%, and VP Lenny gets 19%. But you see, you have to also look at where Senator Pacquiao can help VP Lenny. For example, his Visayan vote is very crucial, no? So if no, I'm not saying it will happen, no, but if his campaign slows down and voters migrate, the voters in Visayas might likely go to VP Lenny. So it helps, no, in particular ways. But when the withdrawal of one candidate, there has to be a withdrawal of multiple candidates, and the impact is not uniform. VP Lenny is not going to get all of that. A lot of it actually is going to go to Senator Marcos also.
Yeah, Professor Rai, Professor David, when we talk about backing out or endorsing somebody or uniting or concentrating on particular regions, these are all strategy. Other than strategy, follow-up lang sa question ni Ami, what are the issues that might still make a difference? In particular, I want to ask, so kasi tumungtong na ng Abril yung survey niyo eh. So yung estate taxes, factored in na yun dyan. And if it is, I mean, what other issues might still be out there that might still change the narrative?
Well, in our past surveys, we did ask, why people vote for certain candidates, no, and why they don't vote for these candidates. And in general, what seems to be resonant, the top three reasons why people don't vote for candidates. Number one, he or she may be, there might be, he or she might have a corruption charge against them, no. Number two, they lie, okay. And number three, that they're part of some sort of scandal. So those are the top three reasons for adult Filipinos for changing their vote in general for all candidates. No, these are the top three reasons. So if the person is associated with corruption, the person lies, and number three is in some sort of scandal. Okay, it's not associated to whether it's he or she's pro-China. These are very low in the concerns of everyday Filipinos. No, now for the person who's on top of the list, no, Senator Marcos in particular. When we studied why people vote for him, it isn't just about passion and because they love the person. It's actually majority of the voters think that he has the managerial competence, no, the experience to run the country, and that number two, he will continue the programs of the current administration. So these are some of the reasons why people vote for, or some of the top reasons why people vote for him.
But could
in
you
particular.
reconcile that? Because I don't think it takes bias to call out the dissonance in what we just said, di ba? Parang,
Yeah, I know.
I'll go out on a limb here and say that Marcos, the name Marcos, ticks all the boxes that you said for people to change their minds, di ba? The Marcoses are associated with corruption. He has been accused of lying about his own personal credentials. And I mean, as far as scandal is concerned, there's no bigger scandal in terms of corruption, box 1 and 2, again, than the Marcos name and their ill-gotten wealth. So how do you reconcile that sentiment of people that these are the top 3 things that we absolutely hate, and yet it seems, despite this being, it seems that this is factored in, and precisely we're still at this point that he's still the number 1 candidate?
Okay, let me clarify. Those top 3 reasons are the reasons people cite for changing their vote. Let's clarify that.
Okay.
It's for changing. That they don't vote. What are the reasons that will convince you to change your vote?
Okay.
And so those are the top 3 reasons.
So they're not
And yes,
convinced.
I have no answer for your question, Robbie. I mean, this is the perception of people, and and it ties up with that's why I had to say what I had to say about specifically about understanding the vote of Senator Marcos. Why do people vote for him? And it's clear they're voting not just from the heart, but also from the mind. They're thinking that he has the competence, the experience, and he will continue some of the programs that people see are beneficial. So these are the reasons why they vote for him. But when you ask them what will convince them to change their vote, maybe in your view, Robbie, maybe they don't know about these issues also. Okay, so that's one possible explanation.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't see it as an issue, or maybe it's not. They don't believe it's an issue. So, in the case of Senator Marcos, because when you ask them why they're voting for Senator, they're very specific about why they're voting for him. Okay, there are, of course, there are other things on the list, no? Like, he's the son of a former president. He's he's part of the Marcos family. I mean, when we run our surveys, we ask a lot of questions. When we ask about endorsements, for example, you know that the top endorser in the country is still the president. The second most popular endorser is the Catholic Church. But do you know who the third top endorser is? It's the Marcos family. It's not even Bongbong, it's a Marcos family. Wow. And they're all in the mid-50s. Meaning, when you ask the regular Filipino, if this person endorses a governor, a congressman, or a mayor, will you vote for that person? If this person endorses. So a lot of people will do so if President Duterte endorses them, or if the Catholic Church endorses them, or if any person from the Marcos clan endorses them. So the Marcos family they're a brand on their own.
Wow.
They have endorsement power by themselves. So this is what these are the sentiments of the everyday adult Filipino voter. Because when we came up with the survey, we were very clear. We're looking at registered, likely voters. We focused on new voters also. But is there a pathway? Is there still a way for competitors to compete? Yes, I think so. The numbers will change, and there's still time for campaigning.
So you're saying hindi irreversible tong trend na to? It can still be reversed?
No, the trend is significant. I mean, the trend is there, and the trend has been there since December. I mean, let's face it. We can't be disingenuous with the numbers. No, the numbers are showing it's never gone down below 50 in our own survey. But VP Lenny has, and this is the data is there, has surged, in her numbers. Now, will her numbers, will that surge or that momentum be enough to bridge the gap? This is something the campaigns, our everyday, it's up to our everyday voter, our countrymen on May 9. But right now, this is an election for Marcos Duterte to lose. It's theirs at the moment. But what we're saying is this will change. These numbers will change, and there's so much happening right now. I mean, the press conference last weekend, I'm sure it created some dynamic, and that may be positive for the opposition in general. So let's see.
Prof,
Let's see.
Prof, conversely din kasi if you also look at the numbers ng hard and soft voters, yung malalagas sa kanilang supporters nung weekend because of that press conference could just as well go to Bongbong Marcos. Could
Yeah,
add
it's
to his
possible.
numbers
It's very possible.
more than to
It's very
Lenny's
possible.
numbers.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah, but it could also benefit VP Lenny. You see, we're looking now really at two very strong campaigns. The last two campaigns that are still standing, no. Yes, there's still the East Coast. I think all of them are still there, but the ones with momentum are really the campaign of Marcos Duterte and Lenny Inisco.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, let's face it, the numbers are showing that they still have the numbers
sir.
are improving.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me
but,
squeeze in
so,
one more question, sir.
we believe that if the campaigns slow down and some people actually withdraw, or even if they don't withdraw, the campaigns slow down, some voters will migrate, and it will benefit these two remaining candidates now.
Yes, sir. Sir, squeezing one more question from my end. Sir, kasi you said it's not impossible for the number 2 to catch up, but it's an uphill climb. Is there any way to quantify that numerically? Is there any way to give the public any idea of the odds?
Well, I'll leave that to our chief data scientist,
I kinda
Dr.
figured.
Guido David. No?
To be honest, I mean, I hate to give odds because it might send the wrong impression or wrong idea or something. I mean, what we want to say is there's a chance, even if it's small. I don't want to say how small it is. In the same way na may nagsasabi na, we might have a surge after the May elections. I don't want to give probabilities for what the probability of having that kind of surge is. But syempre, we have always been advocating na the surveys are really just a snapshot. It's a measurement of the sentiment of the people. Kami ni Professor Ranjit, we're just messengers. And this is what we're hearing based on our very modest survey. And it's still up to the people. They should still vote based on their own personal beliefs and preferences. And and then whatever happens will happen.
Okay. One last question, Professor Rai. Meron pa bang surveys na lalabas?
Meron pa po. Yan, we were fortunate to get support for one last survey. We're conducting it we're actually conducting it now, as we speak. And I'd like to second what Professor Davido has been saying. Number one, this election is important to the life of our country. It's in our own everyday advocacy and passion to take part in it, in the campaign. Will whatever the outcome is, will actually push broaden and deepen our democracy, furthermore. And we like to encourage the everyday citizen not to use the survey data as a basis for making their vote. We make our vote because we believe in the candidate, his or her own program, platform, and when we go in May 9, we go vote in May 9. With our families, we're not just voting for a person, we're voting for the country. And so we hope that our voters will vote wisely and not use the survey data that we provide, which is for information, a snapshot only of a particular period, in this case the first week of April, to be a basis for voting in May 9. May 9 is so important for us. We hope that people will participate and vote wisely.
Okay, Professor Ranjit Rai and Professor Guido David of Octa Research. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Prof.
Salamat.
Thank you, the Chiefs. Good night.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is Attorney Barry Gutierrez, the spokesman for presidential candidate VP Leni Robredo. Sir Barry, good evening and thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the Chiefs.
Magandang gabi.
Good evening, Ami. Good evening, Ed. Good evening, Robbie.
Yes, sir.
Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Sir, 19 days to go before Election Day. Kausap namin kanina yung Okta Research. It's going to be an uphill climb for Robredo. It's not impossible, but it's going to be definitely an uphill climb. My question is this. With 19 days to go, is there going to be a change in strategy to accelerate your movements? Or what's the plan? What's the plan for the next 19 days?
The plan is really just to remain focused and continue what we have been doing, which has allowed us to actually benefit from this surge in the VP's numbers. So the provincial trips and grand rallies that she has been doing over the course of the past few weeks will be accelerated and intensified over the next few days. The house-to-house campaigns being done by volunteers, which now include her proxies, her daughters, and some celebrities, will be again expanded and continued. And really, just the idea of mobilizing the People's Campaign to talk to people within their own networks, tao sa tao, kwento sa kwento, puso sa puso, sabi nga ni VP Leni. And we feel that that's the formula that has worked in the past few weeks, and we feel that continuing that, making it more focused, more intense in the remaining 20 days since before the election is enough to actually get us past the finish line come May 9.
Pero sir, let me borrow from my Physics 21. What you need is not velocity. What you need really is acceleration. And yun nga, with just 3 weeks to go, if you just stay with the same strategy na keeping focus and so on, don't you have the need to change strategy?
We don't think so, because this strategy has worked, and we think that it will snowball. And we have been seeing that in the numbers. Her numbers, grew moderately well in the previous months, but in the last months they have really gotten really bigger. A double-digit increase in some surveys. A 9-point increase in the Pulse Asia survey released a few weeks ago. So we feel that the acceleration will be there. Every person that gets convinced will in turn get to campaign and join the ranks of those that are pushing for VP Leni's presidency. So we're not talking about a linear progression here. We're talking about an exponential progression, and that's what we are banking on in the remaining 3 weeks of the campaign.
Attorney Barry, I don't think it's an accident that you keep saying, let's keep our focus. And over the past few days and weeks, nakikita ko rin yung message na yon with some of your key supporters. We've seen it from Vice President Leni herself. I've seen it from the post of Aika Robredo saying not only focus, but really saying, let's focus on the positive, let's focus on our message, let's focus on Vice President Leni Robredo. But I just want to ask, is this a deliberate message? Because there is dissonance in social media where a lot of people are saying, oh, focus on the positive. But in social media, you have a lot of supporters na hindi, nakikipagbardagulan pa rin sa iba-ibang kandidato. Even with the press conference on Sunday, you were frankly, my personal perception is you've been riding a wave of these feel-good rallies that have really focused on, just feeling good about it. And then something like this happens, and all of a sudden, again, the narrative and the criticism of some of your supporters, not of the official campaign, is that, ayan na naman, puro negative na naman, nakikipagbardagulan na naman itong mga kakamping. Do you think your message is enough to bring everybody on the same page, let's say?
Well, yes, to a certain extent. And I think that the repeated emphasis by the Vice President herself and her daughters and other people from the campaign like me is really intended to bring our supporters' attention back to what is important. What is the priority here? And the priority is really continuing the campaign, continuing to talk to people, because that is what has brought us this far. I also think it's no surprise that we have all these things happening right now. Kung ano-ano binabato. Last week it was a supposed sex video. And then there was this press conference. There are going to be distractions. There are going to be deliberate attempts by some other camps to try and derail the momentum by drawing supporters into arguments, particularly on social media. That's why we are trying our best to remind everyone of what is at stake here, what the priority should be. And I think that to a large extent, people have been responding very positively to the message. People are still continuing the house-to-house campaigns. They are still continuing the attempts at a conversion through conversations. And that's really what we should be doing and emphasizing in the remaining 3 weeks of the campaign.
Attorney, how much of the country do you still need to cover? Because we talked to Pulse Asia. That was shortly, I think, after your rally in Pasig. No? And he said, mukhang nadadrive yung support by the size of the crowd. No? Nai-impress yung mga tao at sumasali sa inyo. So you will be needing to cover more ground. How much of the country do you still need to cover in less than 3 weeks, actually?
She's gone to more than 51 provinces already in the course of this campaign. And this week alone, the VP is going to an average of 2 provinces a day. She was in Quezon and Marinduque yesterday. Today, she was in Bataan and Zambales. Tomorrow, she will be visiting Negros Oriental and Siquijor. On Thursday, she will be in Cebu. So that's where well, as far as humanly possible, the VP is actually accelerating her schedule of visits to all the places that we need to get to, because we also have gotten that feedback that if she goes to a place, there's a huge rally, there is inevitably a substantial spike in her support in that particular province. So we're trying to maximize that, and then after she leaves, the volunteers will continue to take up the slack, continue conversations, continue the efforts at conversion. And we feel that that's really what has to happen in the next 3 weeks.
Sir, a few days ago, there was something that happened that kind of confounded a lot of people. Yung pagbago ninyo ng inyong logo.
Okay.
Well, three weeks before election day, biglang nagbago po yung logo. What was the reason for that? What drove that?
Well,
And what's
first
the
of all,
meaning
it
of that?
wasn't really pagbabago ng logo. It was the introduction of a new symbol. And this was always planned. It was planned weeks before for release after the Holy Week break. It's intended to signal I suppose, a new chapter in the campaign. Because obviously, early on, campaign is a very partisan affair. You're trying to get people to your camp to support your candidate. But moving nearer to the elections, we become more conscious of the idea that this is actually an exercise to pick a leader who will be the leader of the entire country. So the new logo, the new symbol, is intended to reflect that VP Leni, if she is elected president, is prepared to be president for the entire Philippines. So you have the pink color there, you have the green for Senator Kiko, but you have the colors of the Philippine flag. And that is really what the entire election is going to be about after all. We are electing a president for all Filipinos who will serve all Filipinos. And we just want to signal that VP Leni is actually prepared to take on that role and that she will discharge that role to the best of her ability.
Pero sir, wouldn't you have wanted that change in symbology from the very start and not in the last few weeks of the elections?
Well, people will still continue to use pink. Our supporters will continue to use that. But we wanted this to be a signal that we are now entering I suppose, a different phase of the campaign, where we should already be preparing for the aftermath, after the elections, when all attention and all eyes turn towards leadership and unification.
I'm just curious, one, for your take, but also just some updates. After that Easter Sunday press conference by Isko Moreno, Ping Lacson, Norberto Gonzales, and the other 2 vice presidential candidates, what has really happened is that everybody has distanced themselves from what Isko Moreno has been saying, to the point that even Dr. Willie Ong today said he's apologizing. Ping Lacson said that was never my message. I'm just wondering, one, your take, but also I want to know, have they reached out to your camp officially to express their sentiments?
No, in fact, the only news that I have gotten is what I have seen on media. I understand that there was an apology from former Defense Secretary Gonzales this morning. Was it on your show? No, I think it was a different show. He was on the Chiefs yesterday, I think. But no, they have not reached out officially. But you know, from our end, this was never really. This was not really something that required an apology. We did not expect one. We appreciate that he made the effort, but at the end of the day, we are adults. Sanay na kami dito eh. 'Di ba ganyan talaga ang eleksyon, 'di ba? Madaming mga sinasabi. And kami basta focus lang on what needs to be done, on the task at hand. And we don't want to be distracted by mga ganitong mga bagay na samaan ng loob. Sa totoo lang, sanay na si VP Lenny. She's gotten worse in the past 6 years.
Well, you're talking about conversion. Yung message niyo about unity, medyo kapareho yan ng unit team, ano? Kasi, can you tell us more about the strategy for converting people to your side?
Well, you know, the biggest hurdle in our experience has really been just getting past the wall of disinformation that has been created around the Vice President and what she has done. A lot of people, because of a sustained social media campaign to discredit the Vice President on the back of fake news and disinformation drives, don't know what she has done. They are not aware of what she stands for. So simply getting people outside of social media, talking to them, introducing the Vice President, telling the truth about her performance, telling the truth about the statements she has actually made, is actually already a very, very effective tool for conversion. That's why our focus has been simply get people out there, get in real conversations with people who have gotten most of their information about the VP from social media, and engage them. And in many cases, this has proven to be very, very effective in converting people to, if not outrightly supporting VP Lenny's presidential bid, at least being open to it, and you know, being more open to having further conversations on the matter.
Anong sagot niyo doon sa sinasabi ni Mayor Isko Moreno na kaya daw maraming support si Bongbong Marcos? It's also partly because of resistance to your standard bearer.
Well, the resistance is there, undeniably, but as I said, it is a resistance born out of false information. It is a resistance anchored on perceptions that are not anchored in the truth, but rather on the back of a sustained 6-year campaign on social media to actually discredit the VP. So as I said, we are breaking through that barrier slowly but surely, and through actual conversations. That's why we are so grateful for the efforts of volunteers, because it's difficult to actually have real conversations on social media. The tendency is for people to just harden their positions and to go into polarized camps, speaking within their own echo chamber. So it's very, very valuable for us to go out, to take the conversation out of social media. People talking to their family members, talking to their co-workers, their neighbors, people within their own networks, and that has been very effective.
But to that point, we're almost running out of time. Doon sa panawagan din ni Aika Robredo, sabi niya, in the final weeks, tumulong na lang yung mga supporters na to visit the communities. How do you make sure that the message and the communication at that level is right and proper and effective? And I'll throw in as a general question, what are the plans for April 23?
Well, to begin with, there is a pool of common materials that attempt to address, commonly asked questions. Ano ba nagawa ni VP Lenny Ano ba talaga ang posisyon niya on this issue or that issue and whatever. Ano yung mga sagot dun sa mga fake news na kumakalat sa kanya sa social media dati-dati. So volunteers have had access to this pool of information, and they utilize that within their own networks. But to answer your question, to a large extent, it's simply trust. We trust people to know their own communities best. We trust them to know how to talk to their own family members or their own co-workers or their own neighbors. Because to get out of the silos that social media has actually boxed us in, you really need to have real conversations. And part of having a real conversation is an element of trust. So people talking within their own communities, they already have the benefit of that. There is the benefit of trust because of established relationships. And if we leverage that relationship into conversations that lead to talking about the vice president, why they support the vice president, and so on, then it's a more effective way of winning people over to our side.
Okay, Attorney Barry Gutierrez, spokesperson po ni Vice President Leni Robredo. Sir, maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Ami. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you
Always
po.
a pleasure to be here, and stay safe.
And that's all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.